Guys, Reform are in kind of a weird spot right now. It seems like they've basically hit their limit on polling. I spoke about this like a little while ago. That this year, basically, they set out it was going to be, this year was going to be their big expansion year. They were going to go from, you know, having like their, whatever it was, 20-odd% points in the polls, to going up to like, you know, having a defining majority in the polls. That's what they were trying to get towards. Right now, they have about 30%, and they've been stuck, I mean, a little bit lower than that in a lot of polls, but they've been stuck around that figure, just under maybe in some cases, for a while now, for a good few months. Sort of like they're going just up and down around that point. And they are not taking off. It's just not taking off. And we're going to look at this video because basically when you actually look at the breakdown of different pieces of polling that are meant to identify which parties someone is or groups of people are willing to vote for, and you compare it to like the polling for other parties, you see that it kind of does seem like, just almost mathematically, Reform can't get any further ahead than they have been right now. They've kind of capped, unless something massive changes and a bunch more people are suddenly open to voting Reform. There's like, you know, some crazy mass radicalization event where all these lefties are suddenly like, actually, no, I'm a Nazi now, you know? Unless that happens, it doesn't really seem like they're going anywhere. So we're going to have a look at this video first. Then we're going to take a look at, they're begging Jenrick to join them. They're begging Robert Jenrick to join them. There's a lot going on. There's a Richard Tice interview from Sky this evening that we're going to take a look at.
Nominally established in 2018, Nigel Farage's Reform UK has done remarkably well. It's gone from having no representation in Parliament to having 5 MPs, and since the local elections this year, has also secured almost 1,000 councillors in local government across the country. Perhaps, though, its biggest success is its standing in the national polls. Since the 2024 general election, Reform had increased its national polling so much that, by March, they'd overtaken both the Conservatives and Labour, and were, for the first time, out in front. While they're still the most popular party in the country, since March their polling has actually stalled and even begun to drop slightly, leading some to ask whether Reform has hit their polling ceiling, their theoretical maximum standing in the polls. So, in this video, we're going to have a look into this and figure out whether Reform has already peaked. We've just released a new coffee
great
table
stuff,
book.
Man. Well, go check out TLD News coffee table
Reform
book, guys.
are averaging roughly 30% at the moment, giving them around a 10-point lead over Labour. However, Reform has been on around 30% since about June, and it looks as though their polling surge has stalled and actually declined slightly. So, what gives? Well, while Farage is a popular politician, according to YouGov he's actually the most popular politician in the UK, there are factors working against him. Farage is a deeply polarising figure. And while he does have the highest number of people say that they have a very favourable opinion of him, he also has the highest number of people that have a very unfavourable opinion of him too.
When you look at it like this, like, yeah, Keir is like just insanely unpopular. Totally irrational, by the way. But dude, this is like, he's comparable to Corbyn, really, in terms of where he's at. And Corbyn failed repeatedly. Corbyn was never going to be leader. And the way it's looking for Farage is he's at least going to need a Conservative coalition. He's hitting his peak. He's not going to suddenly blow up. Reform aren't going to blow up and just totally, you know, consume the Conservatives. So they're going to need a coalition. That's the way it's looking, if they even get that. And there's so much that can happen in the next few years that the people who were calling it for Reform like 2 months ago, a month ago, already are starting to look kind of retarded because they need to push further. They need to be able to push further because right now it looks like the only way they can go is down. They can only get less popular. I don't think they're going to get more popular. And if the immigration issue becomes less important, if that's more dealt with, if people aren't seeing the constant sight of you know, boats coming across the channel, that, you know, they're not feeling like there's a bunch of asylum seekers being dumped in their towns because the hotel's being closed down. This sort of stuff gets fixed. I don't really see them maintaining the same energy that they've had for the last year or so.
At least among senior British politicians. Given that Reform's polling is inextricably linked to their populist leader, it should be unsurprising that Farage's popularity seems to limit who Reform can reach. A recent YouGov poll asked people to rank on a scale of 0 to 10 how likely they'd be to consider voting for each of the UK parties. They found that 51% of people said 0 out of 10 for Reform, significantly more than any other party. The party with the second most people saying 0 is Labour, with 41%. What this means is that at least half the electorate is effectively off limits to Reform, because they dislike the party so much they can't see a world in which they would even consider voting for them. To make matters worse, the same polling found that only 27% of the public have suggested that they would consider voting Reform, i.e. gave an answer between 6 and 10. This is a problem for Reform, as the latest YouGov voter intention poll suggests that 26% of voters would vote Reform if there was an election tomorrow. What this means is there isn't really anywhere for them to go. They're already pretty much at their vote ceiling, as there's only a 1% gap between those that would vote for them and those that would consider voting for them. This isn't the case for the other parties. For Labour, the gap is 6 percentage points. For the Tories, it's 10 percentage points. And for the Lib Dems and Greens, it's 13 percentage points. So each of these parties theoretically have room to expand. Reform doesn't. While this is, of course, just a single poll, it indicates that Reform is at, or at least near, its proverbial polling ceiling. So, why might this be the case? Well, in a poll from January, YouGov asked people who had previously said they would consider voting Reform what their biggest reservation would be. The three main reasons given are Reform's lack
okay, that's already... I was going to try and guess it, but they've already
of experience governing, that they're a small party, or that a vote for them would be wasted, and a concern that they'll be the same as the rest. The issue here is that some of these aren't problems that Reform can solve. If the main reservation with Reform was, say, that they don't have a well-developed policy platform, this wouldn't be too much of a problem, as they'd likely roll out a more detailed policy platform in the run-up to the election.
Yeah, but they can't just... So...
And solve.
If your issues are... So lack of experience, wasted vote, same as the rest. Okay, wasted vote goes away if you're likely to win. But lack of experience, same as the rest. The only way you can get more experience is by bringing in Tory MPs, defected Tory MPs. But then that makes them all think you're the same as the rest. Because it's just a bunch of old Tories. Which it already is becoming, to be honest. The fact they've got fucking Danny Kruger there is just, like, despicable, frankly.
If the main reservation with Reform was, say, that they don't have a well-developed policy platform, this wouldn't be too much of a problem, as they'd likely roll out a more detailed policy platform in the run-up to the election. Reform's lack of governing experience, however, isn't something that can be rectified as easily. There are two ways of doing this. Firstly, they could promote experienced ex-Tory MPs that defect to Reform. This, though, would likely undermine Reform's populist credentials, and would frustrate those who want Reform to be a genuine alternative to the Tories.
Yeah.
The second way of doing this would be to point to the success of Reform mayors and local councillors.
And they can't do that, because it's going fucking terrible.
Exactly going swimmingly. Around 8 Reform-led councils have announced that they'll raise council tax, and none have said that they'll cut it. And by the end of October, Reform had lost around 5% of its councillors that were elected only 6 months ago, due to defections, expulsions, and resignations. So it may be a little tricky to point to the successes of councils. Now, the second issue highlighted by voters earlier in the year is that Reform is a small party, and that voting for them would be a waste. To be fair, it's hard to imagine that this is still an issue for potential voters, given Reform's sustained polling lead. The third issue highlighted by voters is concern that Reform will be the same as the other parties. Now, there are ways in which Reform could distinguish itself, either via policy or style, and there is actually a decent argument to be made that they're putting effort into differentiating themselves. Just look at their conference this year compared to Labour and the Tories. But again, their experience in local government
Zach Polanski's ear use for on Question Time tomorrow. That's huge. That's huge.
Isn't helping here.
That's absolutely huge.
Ultimately, while it's certainly not easy to rocket up in the polls like Reform has done, growing further, or at least maintaining that position by the next election, likely 2029, is a lot harder. In the relatively short time that Reform has had a parliamentary presence, and even shorter time that it's been leading the polls, a series of scandals and incidents have been tricky for the party. Whether it's a racism scandal involving one of its MPs, allegations of racism by Nigel Farage when he was a schoolboy, or the jailing of the former Welsh Reform leader for pro-Russia bribery, the extra public scrutiny that comes with being a poll-leading prospective party of government can obviously be damaging. So, given Reform's stagnation,
yeah, I honestly think
it seems
people have just totally underestimated Farage's ability to completely fuck something up. And if they've already hit their polling ceiling, all that can happen is he fucks it up. That's the only thing that can happen.
It seems reasonable to suggest that it may have hit its polling peak. This would still, of course, be an impressive result for a party that was on single digits just a couple of years ago, and probably won't be much consolation for the mainstream parties, which are still languishing behind in the polls. Now, that's quite a lot of information we've thrown your way.
Wow, thank you. Don't go into the Ground News sponsorship because I don't care. Now, we're going to follow that up with Richard Tice was on Sky. In fact, first, let's, is there any Robert Jenrick? Where's his little TikTok he did? Where's his little TikTok he did? Robert Jenrick loves his TikToks, doesn't he, man? So, Robert Jenrick, little Bobby Jenrick. This is a guy most famous for going into an asylum seeker processing center, specifically one for children, unaccompanied children, in an asylum seeking processing center, something that, you know, has to exist, whether you want, you know, us to only take like 5 legitimate asylum seekers per year, or whether you want us to take all asylum seekers from across the world. You have to have an asylum seeker processing center. He went into the asylum seeking processing center, somewhere that unaccompanied children go, and saw that there was a Tom and Jerry mural on the wall. And he said, this is fucking disgusting. Paint over that. I don't want to incentivize any unaccompanied children to come to this country to see our Tom and Jerry murals in our asylum-seeking processing centers. I don't want to incentivize them coming over it, so paint over that. He had it painted over because there was a Tom and Jerry mural on the wall in a asylum-seeking child processing center. That's what he's most famous for. And now he does TikToks. Where he auditions to be conservative leader. He auditions to be conservative leader, but never gets there. Sadly, he never gets there. So let's take a look. What's he been saying on his TikTok?
Is this the most absurd immigration case you've heard yet? A Pakistani drug dealer has been spared deportation on the grounds that firstly, supposedly he was a star pupil at school, and secondly, that he might use drugs if he went back home. Of course he might. He's a drug dealer. It's totally ridiculous. And it's
so I wonder, what's this story? Is this as absurd as he's making it out to be? Let's see. I have to get this article without a paywall, though. 1 minute. 1 moment. Now, what I'm interested in, they're saying he was a star pupil in school. So how old was he? Mohammed Izan. Tribunal heard that he was 7 years old when he moved to the UK in 2010. So he's like 22. 22-year-old was involved in quite a sophisticated drug dealing operation between 2022 and 2023, to which he pled guilty, but also received cautions for shoplifting, bringing a bladed weapon into school, for which he was suspended in 2015. It's tough to call him a star pupil when he brought in a knife, isn't it, really? That is a tough sell, isn't it? So the Home Office requested to deport him. So it sounds like Labour are trying to get this guy gone. But how do I even feel about that, man? He's a 22-year-old who's been in the country since he was 7. Do I even think he should be deported for drug dealing? I don't even know where I come down on that, man. But Labour are trying to get him deported. That might even be further than I would go. I don't know that. I don't know. I agree. He should be deported. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure where I come down on that one. I'm really not sure. That one would take some thinking. That one would take a bit of thinking. In the country for 15 years, since he was 7. He's a 22-year-old who dealt Class A and B drugs. 30-month sentence. So I just don't even, like, at the best of times, I'm not sure that I care that much about drug dealing as a crime. I'm going to be real. Like, fentanyl, I get. Yeah, heroin, fentanyl, all this stuff. Like, the super destructive ones, I get. I don't know what this guy was dealing, ultimately. But if he was selling, like, coke and weed, do I care? Do I even care that he was selling drugs? Do I literally, is there a single part of me that gives a fuck that he was doing that? I'm not sure. I don't think I do. I don't think I do. If it comes down to what he was doing, to be honest. I think I'd have to know more about this case to know whether I would be like, oh yeah, this guy's like a risk who needs to be deported. You know? Let's say he's using... Let's say, for instance, you look into this case, he's using connections he's got outside of the country, perhaps in a home country or something. And somehow that's playing into the drug dealing here. And it's damaging drugs, like actually damaging drugs, heroin, fentanyl, whatever, you know, crack, whatever. Not like, you know, cool stuff, you know, not like cool stuff like cocaine or MDMA or weed, you know, not like cool drugs, but like, you know, damaging drugs that dirty, like disgusting addicts do, you know, those sorts of drugs. Then maybe I would say he should be deported. Then maybe. But honestly, just the base level facts of this, I'm not sure that I really care that much. And I'm going to be real. This is nowhere near the craziest. Like, he's saying that Robert Jenrick here, little Bobby Jenrick, is telling me this is the most absurd asylum seeker case you've heard yet. No, it's not. No, it's not. Aren't there rapists that haven't been deported because they've got like their relationship with their sister might be damaged or some shit? No, it's not. That's really not that absurd at all. Like, he's a 22-year-old who's been in the country for 15 years and dealt drugs. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to be deported. And the Labour government are pushing for him to be deported. So no, this is not remotely the most absurd case I've heard.
Yet, a Pakistani drug dealer has been spared deportation on the grounds that firstly, supposedly he was a star pupil at school, and secondly...
Yeah, I'm not sure about the star pupil claim, though. I'm really not sure about the star pupil claim, because it sounds like he took a knife into school. While he wasn't criminally charged for that, and it was purely a suspension. I don't know if you can claim star pupil. I don't think he should necessarily play into his deportation, but claiming he's a star pupil is a bit much. It's over-egging, isn't it, really?
He might use drugs if he went back home. Of course he might. He's a
maybe he had great grades. Maybe he had amazing grades. But I just don't know whether I'd call that star pupil, you know?
Dealer. It's totally ridiculous. And it shows us, firstly, we have to leave the ECHR, but we've also got to stop judges here from misapplying the law and making it up as they go along. Is this the most absurd immigration?
Okay, I don't know that they're misapplying the law. So, yeah, this is basically what this guy spends his time doing. Which one might be of interest here? Any of these? It's kind of funny. They were mocking him on the news agents the other day for being out in a field by the water in his fucking white trainers. It's just like so obvious this guy never actually goes outdoors. Like you're out in the countryside, you don't have a pair of wellies. You have a pair of wellies going to wear while you walk down in a field down to the water bank. You have a pair of wellies, really? All right, Rob. All right, Bobby. Okay, Bobby.
So the chair of the budget watchdog, Richard Hughes, has resigned. He's done the right thing. But why hasn't Rachel Reeves gone? Surely tanking the economy, breaking all your promises, and flagrantly misleading the public in advance of a budget is much more serious than accidentally releasing a document a few hours beforehand. So the chair of the budget watchdog, Richard Hughes...
The issue is it's a systemic... It's not just... Oh, he accidentally released it. There was a systemic failure. There was an issue in their IT process that he didn't fix for like over 10 years. It was a systemic failure of his management. That's why he resigned. The Conservatives can't do anything without lying. It's so fucking crazy, man. They've got no argument right now. Craziness. Okay, so let's see this Richard Tice interview. So, keeping with the topic here of Reform hitting their polling limit and needing old Conservatives, Richard Tice was on Sky today being asked about a pact with the Conservatives because a donor, a Reform donor, claimed that Nigel Farage was entertaining the idea. He was basically saying to donors, "Oh, we might do an electoral pact with Conservatives to make sure we get a majority or do a coalition or whatever. We might do that. We're entertaining that idea." And also, he's asked about whether Jenrick might join. So let's take a look. Let's see.
It is a week since the budget. It seems to have gone down okay with the markets and Labour MPs. How are you feeling?
I think it's been an absolute car crash. Her third car crash. The first being the original budget last year. The run-up to this budget was an absolute shambles. And the reality is they're taxing tens of billions every year extra from hardworking Brits in order to fund Benefit Street. And they're borrowing an extra 60
Benefit Street being like, it's like 60% people who are working but just don't make enough to go over the threshold. And who have 2 or more children to support on that income. That's Benefit Street. That's Benefit Street. People that make very little money, but broadly do work, and have 2+ kids. Okay, Richard Tice.
Pounds above what they forecast to borrow back in March. And this is, in growth terms, it's not going to help growth. Businesses are absolutely despairing. I'm hearing from them. People have stopped hiring. They're stopping investing. It's a catastrophe.
Would you do a pact with the Tories?
No, the only thing that the Tories need to do is to recognise that they've had their time after a couple of 100 years. They've blown it, and they should step aside and let Reform take on and defeat the hard socialists and the communists that seem to be on the left side of politics now.
Like, dude, what do you mean the hard socialists and the communists are on the left side? You're so fucking delusional. We have been literally further left in modern British history than we are right now, by far. Like, dude, there were actual full-blown fucking, you know, basically commies in Labour Party governments in, like, the post-war period. Like, what a fucking stupid thing to say. Labour has shifted towards the right in the past, you know, 5 or so years. The idea that right now there's just like so much, oh, the left have just gone totally insane in this country. Yeah, mate, you're living in America, bro. You're like living in New York right now. You're like a New York Jew right now. It's not really the reality in Britain.
According to the polls, it is not a dead certain that you're going to win. You're going to need someone. I can't see you teaming up with Zach Polanski. You're going to potentially need the Tories, aren't you?
No, we're leading the polls by 10 points, which is as much or more than Labour did.
That's not right for all the polls, but carry on.
Well, if you look at the average, that's about it, which is similar to what Labour did last time around with first past the post. That's enough. We've got a long way to go. And I think we'll just keep.
Yeah, that's what they had going into the election, though. Not 4 years before it, when they've hit their polling ceiling.
Working hard, but ultimately, the Tory brand. Look, they had the chance and they've blown it, and we're out competing them. We're beating them every week in by-elections. So, but
you say there's a problem with the Tory brand. You're taking up quite a few washed-up Tory MPs, aren't you?
Well, as long as the people, you see, the brand is done. But some individuals who believe in our values and our principles, they recognise that we are the future. That's the difference.
Right.
Whereas, when a brand is done, a brand is done, and their brand is done. People will not forgive, and they won't forget the damage they did to the economy, overtaxing, over-regulating, not stopping the boats, all of these things, allowing legal immigration to soar out of control, and people won't forget that.
But I guess, as you say, there is a kind of natural alliance between you guys and the Conservatives on policy in many ways. Wouldn't it just be more honest to say that these sorts of talks are happening at some level. You know, you say you're going to be straight with people.
We are, and they're not happening at any level, and they won't happen at any level.
They're not happening at any level at all.
Most of the...
Yeah, I was shocked. This interviewer might be, I don't even know her name, but this interviewer might be the best one I've seen on Sky in a minute. Between the two interviews we've just watched, the one with Kinnock and this one, probably the best interviewer on there right now.
None at all. Most of the parliamentary Conservative Party are really sort of, they're more towards the Lib Dems. They don't agree with our policies. We need to leave the ECHR. We've got to scrap the Human Rights Act. We've got to cut vast amounts of wasteful, the Human Rights Act. That's right, the HRA.
But you fucking idiot, dude. You didn't reply to the point there. Oh my god. It's not just that she's pushing, it's how she's pushing as well. That's the thing. Is asking, like, you're saying you're going to be straight with people, but you're obviously not being honest about your motivations going into the next election. You very rarely hear that level of critique of Reform on Sky News, where they're actually starting to dig into, like, the faux populism a bit. You very rarely hear that level of critique on Sky News. Usually it's like, it's like fucking, what's his fucking face? What's his face, man? Fucking McCaffrey going, don't you think that, you said a while ago that you weren't going to do this? And then they say, oh yeah, we changed our mind. He's like, okay. Well, Labour say, and that's all he can do. That's all he can do. He's fucking useless. Fuck McCaffrey. Fuck Richmond Frost, too. Fuck Richmond Frost. And what's the other guy's name? What's the black guy's name? I can't remember the black guy's name.
We have got to scrap large amounts of wasteful government spending, a whole bunch of stuff that, frankly, most of the Conservative Parliamentary Party don't agree with.
So you're telling me right now, if there was a hung parliament...
Trev, that's it. Trevor Phillips, thank you.
There won't be a hung...
Yeah, why is Richard Tice still in the house that his fucking mum died in? This is like crazy, this wallpaper. Like, what is going on, bro? You look like you're in a fucking like Eastern European, hasn't been renovated since fucking full of Soviets. Like
some sort of
there won't be a hung parliament, there'll be a...
No, but if there was right now...
You're talking in hypotheticals, I'm talking in our ambition.
It's a question,
and that's
though.
what we're going for.
But don't you
It's
think...
a hypothetical. I'm not dealing in hypotheticals. You asked me are the negotiations going on?
But don't you think some of your supporters are going to disagree with that attitude, saying, you know, that at no
far
level
from it.
would you
Let me
consider...
tell you, I know exactly what our supporters want us to be true to our words, stick to our policies, work hard, keep winning by-elections, do really well next May, and reinforce the point. And, you know, in the same way the Tories told us to stand down sort of last year in the general election, now, frankly, it's their turn just to step aside. They've had the go, they've blown it, and competition's a good thing, and we're replacing them. Move on.
So are you saying the story in the FT today is just completely untrue? This is a story about Nigel Farage
I think it was
to a
made up
donor that there could be a pact.
Either made up in the imagination of the journalist or in the imagination of maybe a couple of donors who wanted to hear something different from what they actually heard.
See, look, dude, you know, this is how you know it's true, man. This is how you know whatever this journalist is saying about the donors claiming that Farage was saying he's going to do an electoral pact with the Conservatives or is considering it. This is how you know it's true. Because Tice is like, oh, you know, maybe the journalist just like sort of made it up. He realizes he can't commit to that, and he's like trying to come up with another party to scapegoat onto. So he starts saying the donors. You think that's a good idea, Tice? Scapegoating your donors? And he realizes that midway through, I think. As he's saying it, you hear the hesitance.
Of maybe a couple of donors who wanted to hear something different from what they actually heard. Sometimes that happens in life. It's fine. I mean, you know, just stuff happens. Imagination of maybe a couple of donors who wanted to hear something different from what they actually heard. Sometimes that happens in life.
There you go. Sometimes that happens, you know. Sometimes that happens.
It's fine.
Dude.
Who wanted to hear something different from what they actually heard. Sometimes that happens in life. It's fine. I mean, you know, just stuff happens. We're just moving on. We're not sort of in any way distracted by this. I know it fills a newspaper on a front page when it's a quiet day, but yeah,
And you think stories about Nigel Farage being racist at school are made up as well, do you?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think it's a bunch of twaddle by a bunch of people.
I mean, it just sort of feels like you're saying that things you don't agree with are just fake news.
Well, frankly, those two things are fake news.
Oh, yeah?
End of story. I mean, people who come forward with a political bent who didn't say it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
So that's an interesting thing to say, isn't it? That's an interesting thing to say, that Richard Tice just said there. They didn't come forward with it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Well, they did, though, didn't they? They actually did come forward with it that long ago. Because the letter written by, what was it, one of the teachers at Dulwich College, explaining the shit Farage was saying and singing, was written 25 years ago, I believe. And Farage was confronted on this several years ago, I believe over 5 years ago at this point, somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago. If I can find it. So they were already coming out about it back then. I can find my clip here. Can't say it 1 second. So first of all, well, we can see his recent acknowledgement. Let's see this one first.
Did you racially abuse fellow pupils when you were at school?
No, this is 49 years ago, by the way. 49 years ago. Have I ever tried to take it out on any individual on the basis of where they're from? No.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow pupils?
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing
sorry, no,
it.
the letter wasn't from 25 years ago. The letter was from the time. The letter was from the time. The letter was when he was getting made a prefect, wasn't it? That's when the letter was from. So they literally said it at the time. It's recorded with contemporaneous evidence. Literally, at the time, they have evidence from that time, written, verified. Teacher wrote this letter. They dug it out for a journalist. Journalist came around asking, making a biography of Nigel Farage, asked for the letter. They presented it. They had this copy of it, this old copy of it from the time. All verified. So it's literally an allegation that has been going since the day, since when it happened.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference does the time make?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my...
Why doesn't he just own it? Well, yeah, that's what Sargon said. Sargon made a whole video about this interview, saying how terrible this was.
Hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference does the time make?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my teens. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation?
But it wasn't just coming out of the woodwork. It absolutely does refute the coming out of the woodwork claims. Because they didn't just come out of the woodwork. They wrote a letter about the situation when it happened. And then a journalist approached them asking for details they've got on Farage, because they were making a biography of Farage about 10 years ago, and presented this letter to a journalist when asked, do you have a copy of this letter? I've heard there was a letter sent about Farage being a prefect, do you not want it to be the case? Do you have a copy of this letter? And they did. That's not coming out of the woodwork. As a journalist goes round, tries to verify a claim, approaches a source, acquires a piece of evidence, and proves the claim. It's not people just coming out of the woodwork to attack him. It's not what's happening at all.
Engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse, on that basis, no.
You're not quite... That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school?
No.
You've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and hurt anybody.
So yeah, there's that. And then this is where is it? It's from this episode of the News Agents, I believe. There's a clip in here. Yeah, here's him being confronted about it when it was first written. The first article about this stuff back in the day.
Yes, of course, I said some ridiculous...
Would you like to see the letter?
I've seen it before.
Have you?
Well, not for 30 years. Yes, of course, I said some ridiculous things that upset
Racist
them.
things?
Not necessarily racist things.
Not
but
necessarily racist.
Well, it depends how you define it. You see, I mean, you've got to remember that ever since 1968, up until the last couple of years, we've not been able in this country intelligently to discuss immigration, to discuss integration. It's all been a buried subject, and that's happened through academia, it's happened through politics and the media.
But I mean, that letter, for instance, it cites an example of you taunting someone in class and having to be excluded.
I was excluded
by implication on racial grounds.
I was excluded from class dozens of times over the years for all
for
sorts
racist
of
comments?
reasons. No. I don't accept that. You know,
I mean, it's not just that.
I was
letter.
excluded
Fellow
from class.
pupils remember you making racist comments.
Well, I might have wound some of them up too, but all through.
So you made racist comments to wind people up?
All through the 1970s and 80s.
Did you find that a...
So, yeah, he has basically acknowledged it multiple times. So the idea that Richard Tice is going on Sky saying, oh, it's fake news, it's fake news. You're a fucking idiot, dude. You look like a fucking idiot right now.
It's just, look, this is fine. We're coming under extra scrutiny because people don't want us to win, and so they'll throw any mud against the wall to make it stick. It's the nature of it. We're winning by-elections every week. I think voters are voting with their feet.
Yeah, that's the case with everyone.
Have you had any conversations with Nigel Farage about those claims, about what he said at school? You must have been uncomfortable when you read them.
No, I wasn't uncomfortable at all because I knew they were completely untrue. I've said very clearly on the media.
You didn't even have to ask him.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's twaddle, and that's that. I discuss lots of things with Nigel lots of times every day.
And just to remind people, this is 20 people who've spoken to The Guardian claiming that he made racist and anti-Semitic comments at school. Would you be interested in Robert Jenrick joining the party?
Oh, I mean, I think Robert might be the next leader of the Conservative Party from everything one's hearing. But we don't talk about any discussions with anybody. We don't give a running commentary. Who knows what may happen with the future with anybody? But
so the thing is, it would have been Jenrick leading the Conservative Party, but Kemi's kind of found her footing, so it doesn't seem like it's gonna be that easy.
You know, I'm certainly not giving you any confirmation either way.
A senior Reform source has told the Times that it would be the best thing for Robert to join Reform.
All this stuff, people are getting very, very excited about stuff that I think is just. I mean, that's 3 stories you've told me just now, all of which, frankly, I think it's just nonsense. It's twaddle.
Right.
Is it April the 1st, Ali?
No, not quite. Nearly. Thank you so much, Richard Tice. I know you've got to go, but thanks for talking to us tonight.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. So yeah, that's the latest Reform updates there.